order the City of Santa Barbara Planning Commission meeting of February 14th, 2008. Ms. Rodriguez, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Vice Chair Larson.
Here.
Commissioner Bartlett.
Here.
Commissioner Jacobs. Absent. Commissioner Jostis. Absent. Commissioner Thompson.
Here.
Commissioner White.
Here.
Chair Myers.
Here. Ms. Hubble, are there any requests for continuances, withdrawals, postponements, or addition of ex-agenda items?
No, Chair Myers, they're not.
Any announcements or appeals?
Yes, I did want to announce that on March 11th, 1236 San Andres appeal to council is scheduled, and on March 4th, the 517 Chapala Street project is on council on appeal, and we would like representatives from the Planning Commission for both of those.
Okay. The 4th and the 11th?
Yes.
Okay. Any...
So 517 Chapala Street would need to be somebody who was on the commission at the time that went through.
Mr. White? Would you like to volunteer, Mr. Jostis?
All right. Okay, thank you. And then the 1236 San Andres project.
And that's on the 11th.
That's on the 11th.
That's hard for anybody.
March 11th?
Well, you can pencil me in.
Okay, great, thank you. And then we haven't finalized a date, and we may request Planning Commission presence as well. The Architectural Board of Review preliminary approval of the workshop housing project, or workforce housing project, has been appealed, and so that will be on council sometime in late April.
Okay.
That's
Okay,
it.
thank you. At this time, we'll take comments from members of the public on any item that's not on our agenda. If any member of the public wishes to speak, please step forward. Seeing none, I'll close that hearing. And our next item is a new item, item number 3. It's the application of Lena D. Althouse, agent for Southern Pacific Railroad, tenant at 199 West Montecito Street. Michael Berman will be giving the staff presentation.
Chair Myers, members of the Commission, good afternoon. I'm here today to present to you a project that's been known as the Railroad Culvert Installation Project. This project is a component of the Lower Mission Creek Flood Control Project. It's the Oxbow Bypass. This project would only create a portion of the bypass. The construction I'm on the wrong presentation, excuse me. I'm sorry, I have 2 of these today, so I screwed up. Yeah, this is the correct presentation, excuse me. So again, I'm here to present to you the Railroad Bridge Deck Replacement Project. This project would replace the bridge deck over Mission Creek, which is currently deteriorated. Only the deck is to be replaced, and there will be some creek wall replacement as well, repairs rather. The project will be coordinated with the Railroad Culvert Project, which will be the next project on your agenda. And as I mentioned earlier, the abutments to the bridge would need some cosmetic repairs. The project is located east of Montecito Street, over Mission Creek at the railroad line. That is at the western end of the railroad depot. The railroad depot itself is a National Historic Register site. The project is located in this area over here. This is State Street over here. The 101 freeway goes this way. And this would be Chapala, and Montecito Street is over here. The project, as I indicated earlier, would remove and replace the existing bridge deck over Mission Creek. It would also include preparing the abutment to accept the new bridge deck. It must be understood that the new bridge deck would be a little narrower than the existing bridge deck. The sandstone walls on the banks of Mission Creek at that location would be refaced, and new handrails would be installed. And finally, when the project's complete, the area will be restored to its existing appearance. Here's a plan view of the proposed bridge. This area here is the area of the existing bridge that wouldn't be replaced. Here's a photograph showing the project area from view from the east on the railroad platform. The area of the bridge deck is roughly in this area over here. Here's a picture of the bridge, its deck itself, and this time from it would be the northeast. Here's one directly from the north, and again from the north. Here's another project that photograph that shows the central support for the bridge. This is the area that would not be replaced. It would be Open Creek after that project. And I should have removed that one. Here's, whoops, no, I shouldn't have. This is a picture of the north side of the bridge from the west end overlooking the railing. And this photograph shows the actual bridge deck itself. Here's the railing on the north side, and this area over here is the area of the bridge deck. Final photograph, I believe, is the one showing the project area from the western end of the near Montecito Street. And again, here's the bridge railing. Here's the bridge in this location. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission make the findings in the staff report and approve the project subject to the conditions of approval attached to the staff report. That concludes my presentation. We have Pat Kelly and Steve Foley staff available to answer questions, and Jeff Teague of HDR Engineering and Lindy Althouse, who are the agent to answer any technical questions you may have about the project. I'm also available to answer questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff at this time? Mr. Bartlett?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When we were at our site visit on Tuesday, it was explained that the center stone pier at the midspan of the bridge was to get a new sandstone cap, but I'm not seeing that on the plans. These are hard to read because they're so small scale. Maybe, is that correct, or were we just misled at the site visit, perhaps?
I believe that is correct, and I think it will be worked out at the Historic Landmark Commission exactly how that's going to look.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Michael, the railing that on the north side there that you said will be replaced looks kind of decrepit and shaky, and even if it was not all rusted through and everything, it still doesn't look like it's the safest kind of a railing. Can you say what kind of a railing we're going to be replacing that with?
Well, according to the Historic Structures Report, and the applicant has proposed to do this as well, they want to put in a bridge railing that looks substantially like the industrial look of that existing railing. However, that existing railing doesn't meet code because you can fit a 4-inch sphere in between the railings and the bridge, in the portions of the railing. And so the new railing will have some kind of mesh yet to be designed to comply with the code.
Okay, that's my main concern is pedestrian safety. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a quick question. I was looking through the conditions of approval, and does it discuss the unusual construction hours that are going to be accompanying this project?
Chair Myers, yes, it does. There's in the noise, Jazz looking at it right now, is that 16?
Condition
Page
number
2.
10 on page
Oh, I
2
see.
of the conditions, near the end of it.
I see.
Subject to notification to
Okay.
neighbors, the project would be permitted to conduct 24-hour construction.
Okay, thank you very much. Does the applicant or anyone else have anything else to add? No? Okay, I will open this up for public comment. Seeing no one coming forward, and I have no green slips, I'll just make mention that we do have a letter from Paula Westbury regarding this and some negative comments against the project. Okay, I'll bring that back. I'll close public comment and bring it back to the commission for a motion, deliberation and a motion. Should I pick someone? Mr. White?
Well, Mr. Chair, I would move that the Planning Commission approve the coastal development permit for the replacement of the, I believe it's Union Pacific bridge deck rather than Southern Pacific as noticed. Is that correct? There's no, that's just the evolution somehow that left in there. So I would move approval with the, including the conditions as outlined in the staff report, and I don't think we have any findings to make on this, so.
Second.
And the findings.
Second.
Any further discussion, Mr. Bartlett?
Under discussion, I would like to at least clarify or add the comment that the restorative stonework shall also be applicable to the center bridge support as well as the two side abutments.
Acceptable. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Carries 5-0. Have a project that's appealable to City Council within 10 days. Our next project, our next item, is in relation to this item, item number 3B, application of Thomas Conti, engineer for the City of Santa Barbara Public Works Department, 225 Chapala Street. Staff presentation again given by Michael Berman.
Chair Myers, this project would install a culvert beneath the railroad line at the western end of the railroad depot. This is a portion of the Lower Mission Creek Flood Control Project, Oxbow bypass that would allow high flows in event of larger storms to bypass a portion of Lower Mission Creek and provide additional flood control capacity. The project creates only a portion of this bypass. That portion would be the construction of the culvert underneath the railroad itself. Construction requires a brief railroad closure, and the site is to be returned to its existing condition when the project is completed, and the remainder of the bypass will be constructed at a later date. This project is coordinated with the earlier project I mentioned, and the applicant's intent is to have the closure of the 24-hour closure at the same time as on both projects. The project is located in line with the Chapala Street right-of-way at the railroad bridge at the western end of the railroad station in this location. This again is State Street. Here's 101. This is West Montecito, and again this is Chapala. Here's a plan view that shows a little bit more detail about where the project fits into the Oxbow. This is the project area that's currently proposed, and these areas are portions of the Oxbow. This is the southern portion, this is the northern portion, and here's the Morton Bay fig tree. The project would involve removing the existing asphalt, concrete, rails, lights, and any furniture that are located on the railroad station at that location. They would excavate approximately 3,525 cubic yards and stockpile some of it, export approximately 1,600 cubic yards. They would install the concrete culvert in a series of sections would be attached to one another. The dimensions of the outside of the culvert are, it would be 43 feet wide, 102 feet long, and 9 feet deep. Approximately 1,870 cubic yards of fill would be placed back around the excavation site. The rails would then be replaced, and existing hardscape would be replaced as is existing. Again, this project includes 1 night of construction and rail closure, and it's expected that the entire project would last less than 2 months. Here's a plan view showing the various culvert sections. The culvert sections are roughly 2 feet wide this way and roughly 40 feet long this way. Here is a section view of the culvert. There would be 2 of these placed one next to the other, so they'd make almost like a figure 8 shape. And this is all reinforced precast concrete that would be brought to the site on the back of a railroad car. Here's some photographs of the project site. This first one is looking south along the Chapala Street alignment towards Chapala Street. There's Chapala Street in the ocean in the distance. This is the parking lot of the railroad station, and the project area would be in this location over here. This is another view of the project site. This time, I believe it's from the north, looking south again. A view of the project area from the east, from the railroad platform. A view of the project looking from Chapala Street towards the north rather. This is the area of the project. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission make the findings in the staff report and approve the project as conditioned. That concludes my presentation. We have again Pat Kelly and Steve Foley here to answer any questions you may have. Oh, we have, excuse me, we also have a representative from County Flood Control. That concludes my presentation. We're available for questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Ms. Larson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could you please describe any protection measures proposed for the Morton Bay fig tree? Or if they're necessary with this excavation?
Well, for this component of the project, we're quite a distance from the Morton Bay fig, so there's no precautions proposed. But when they do the extension of the Oxbow to the north to the 101 freeway, they are proposing to move that segment of the alignment a little closer to the Bay fig. There is a arborist report on that subject that indicates that if they properly mulch and fertilize the tree and use the same mitigation as originally proposed in the Lower Mission Creek Flood Control Project, there should be no impacts on the Morton Bay fig.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Michael, this is a good piggyback kind of a project. As long as the railroad's going to be shut down, get 2 for the price of 1, so to speak. That's a good thing, but it calls into question, perhaps you could give us a little rundown as to where the overall Lower Mission Creek Flood Control Project stands. Are we stymied pending funding, or what's the next step beyond this target of opportunity, so to speak?
Well, originally the Lower Mission Creek Flood Control Project was proposed by the Army Corps of Engineers. And the Army Corps of Engineers doesn't have the funding to implement the project. Therefore, the city and county flood control have been working to obtain the funding to implement this project. This project is a project of opportunity. We're trying to take advantage, or at least rather the engineering is trying to take advantage of the railroad proposed closing for the bridge. And so the funding, I believe, is in place for them to now construct the culvert. They are working on getting the funding to construct the rest of the Oxbow. There are people available from County Flood Control and from the city that would give more information about what funding has been provided. Maybe Pat Kelly can explain more.
Mr. Kelly?
Chair Myers, Planning Commissioners, and Commissioner Thompson. At this point, we don't have, the funding has not all been compiled for the rest of the project. Flood control can speak to more detail, but what I've been told is that we're aggressively, they are aggressively, and with support from the city, and in parallel pursuit of grants to get grants to build either side of the this culvert to complete the Oxbow. There's opportunities at Proposition 84, Proposition 1E, but until that grant process goes further along, we can't speak to how much funding is available or when this can be built. We're also in parallel coordinating with the Flood Control District to look at potentially a new construction start from the Corps of Engineers. It's a slim possibility. However, we're trying to pursue all means to get the additional funding. Get back directly to your question is that we don't know exactly when the funding will be, but right now we're the discussion we've had with council and with flood control is that we're looking for opportunity projects and to look at incremental opportunities to build the project so that over time the community can have the benefit of this flood control project.
Right. And another example of that would be with the approval of the Cabrillo Bridge replacement. We did a short section between Cabrillo Bridge and State Street. So that was another piece that was taken care of. Also, they're in the design stage and actually getting ready to start construction on the Haley de la Vina Bridge replacement, which will be done in a way that matches the flood control project, and similarly for the Ortega Bridge.
Does the Yananali Bridge get attention too?
The Yananali Bridge will be in place. However, we've been notified from the state that it needs a seismic retrofit. So separate and parallel, we'll be looking at, I'm not sure, depending upon the type of work, but we may have to get a coastal development permit to do that type of repair too.
Yeah, that particular bridge wasn't part of the original flood control project. The Mason Street Bridge is, and we don't know the timing on that one yet either.
Okay.
But that trestle at Yananali will be left intact. So it'll strictly just be a repair, a seismic repair that should not be perceptible.
Right, because the bridge itself is considered historic.
Mm-hmm.
One of the last remaining pony truss bridges in the state.
And who's on the hook for that financially? Is the state?
The state has offered, I believe it's through Proposition 84, I believe it's close to 100%, if not 100% funding for that.
Okay.
It's essentially this truss sitting on gravity walls. So it's under its current condition, it is safe and stout, but the uncertainty of a seismic vibration is the issue that we'll be pursuing.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. Any other questions, Mr. Bartlett?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Perhaps Mr. Kelly could explain a little bit better the construction logistics between this Oxbow culvert project and the prior project that we just reviewed. Apparently, they're both occurring on the same night when we're having the railroad shut down for the 24-hour period, but is the railroad doing the construction on the bridge deck and then Public Works or somebody else doing the culvert construction? And since all the culverts are arriving by rail, do they arrive ahead, and are they parked between the two projects, or are they parked in front of the train station? How does all this happen in a 24-hour period?
Commissioner Bartlett and Planning Commission, I'd like to defer to the railroad applicant on those details of construction.
Okay.
Is this on?
Yes, it is.
Good afternoon. My name is Lindy Althouse, and I'm representing Union Pacific Railroad today. I normally act as an environmental consultant, but I also find myself bridging these two projects, and it's been wonderful working with your staff. One of the questions has to do with how will this happen? How can, in 24 hours, Union Pacific Railroad construction crews build a bridge and to construct the culverts. I've spoken at length with the contractor who will be assisting Union Pacific Railroad and the manager, Rich Lamb, who is he's the applicant, he's the Union Pacific Railroad officer, let me just say that. And Rich Lamb has it figured out that he's going to have all the material for the culvert project on a siding, Railroad South, so east of the project, ready to move on site. All the materials for the bridge on a siding, Railroad North, west of the project site. All of the preliminary work will be done Monday and Tuesday during the daylight hours to get ready. So there'll be some sheet pile that will be driven to protect the creek, to protect some sewer structures and some other places that need to be protected. Some of the infrastructure will be pulled out at the Amtrak station so that the excavators can get to work right away as soon as Amtrak shuts down. So when Amtrak shuts down for that 24-hour closure, then the cranes will be in place, all ready to go. There'll be two, if there won't be three, 200-ton cranes working, and the excavator that will be there. So the excavation will go on, and sometime close to midnight is when they anticipate that they'll be ready to begin bringing in those pieces of the culvert and place those during the night. And the same kind of activity will happen on the bridge project. The crane will be picking up the pieces, and the old bridge is going to come off and get hauled away, and then the new bridge will start being placed sometime around midnight. And they figure they can get that all done, and these guys know what they're doing, and that's why it's nice to have Union Pacific's own crew doing this project.
Will you be doing a golden spike ceremony at the end?
They would appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there dates that are slated for this?
Yes, the week of April 16th, so that Wednesday is the beginning of the 24-hour closure, so that would be April 14th when we're hoping to do that. So that's after spring break, and it's before summer, so we're trying to get it right after the rainy season, but when you're not at the height of your tourist season.
Thank you very much for the explanation.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you. Is there anything else that you wish to add, that the applicant wishes to add? No? Okay.
Oh, I was going to ask one more question.
Sure, Ms. Larson.
Thank you. Of the nice people from the railroad, could you take a moment, since we have public watching, and describe how we're going to get around with train service during this brief period?
That's an important question. Union Pacific Railroad will be coordinating and is coordinating with Amtrak, so operations for Union Pacific coordinates with the Amtrak people for this closure. And so there'll be advance notice, and when people go online to get a ticket, there'll be probably information that Amtrak will have. The trains will be routed from Ventura to Goleta. So they will pick up and drop off passengers, so buses, just like they do now when they're routing around some kind of closure. There'll be 3 Amtrak buses that will come in and pick up and drop off passengers from the depot and then take them on to their next destination, whether they're moving north or south. Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Okay, I'll open up public comment for this particular item. Seeing no slips or no one coming forward, I'll close the public comment period with another notation that Paula Westbury has issued a letter against the project. And I'll bring it back to the Commission for any other deliberation or motion. Mr. Bartlett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd be prepared to make a motion to approve the project with the findings as outlined in the staff report for the environmental issues and for the coastal development permit.
Second.
Okay, we have a first by Mr. Bartlett and a second by Mr. Thompson. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, that does include the conditions, right?
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Carries 5-0. It's appealable to City Council within 10 days. Thank you very much for coming, and I wanted to thank the county flood control people for coming too. Appreciate your presence. Thanks. Our next item, may we take a little 5-minute break?
We could probably take a little longer break than that, because I know that Ms. Weiss was going to have to come up for this.
Okay.
And she was planning on being here at 2.
Okay. We're going to take about a 15-minute break.